There's a difference between regular user accounts and administrative accounts. In the Linux world, the root account is the main administrative account. The root account can change any files on the system, can do anything it wants, basically. It has full control over everything. So typically we don't want to just use our regular computer as root. We only want to do things as root when we actually need to. This would prevent us, like if we're just a regular user account, from accidentally changing something important, or if we're running our web browser with our regular user permissions, that web browser can't modify. If there's a bug in our browser that exploits something, we don't want that browser running things as root. So occasionally we do need to use root. And so we'll go over a few ways to use this root account in this lesson. So here we are in our Linux terminal. If I run who am I, we should see like we're the Ubuntu user. We can see that a couple of ways. We can see we're logged in Ubuntu at the IP address. So user at host is the convention. So who am I? I am Ubuntu, just a regular user account with some permissions on this system, but I can't do everything. If I try to list the contents of the /root, that's the root user's home directory, it says permission denied. But what if I do sudo ls, the -a is optional, I'll list it because there it is in the instructions, /root. Oh, I could actually do it. So why could I do it even though I'm still the Ubuntu user? So if I say, who am I? I'm still Ubuntu, but just by running one extra command, I was able to view the contents of the root user's home directory. So I was able to do that because I used sudo. Sudo is the super user do command. It means do this next command with root permissions. And on this particular system, the Ubuntu user has been added to the list of people who are approved to run that sudo command. So if our Ubuntu user can just do it anyway, why make us jump through the hoops to run sudo specifically? Well, it's just an extra layer of security. So we have to be intentional. We have to run sudo if we're going to do something that potentially requires root permissions. So sudo is a helpful command. That's one reason why if I run, let's see, say apt update, I can't do it. Could not lock the file, permission denied, because updating the software repository on my computer is something that could affect everybody using this computer. It's something only an administrator should do. That's why I would have to run sudo apt update, or sudo apt upgrade, or sudo apt install, because I'm making changes to the system as a whole. Everything's up to date because I just updated the system fairly recently. So in that case, we have to run the sudo command several times. Sudo apt update, sudo apt upgrade, sudo apt install, running sudo, sudo, sudo. Occasionally, we want to switch our accounts to the root account, to the root user, so we don't have to run that sudo command everywhere. So we can switch users. There's an su command, switch user, sudo su, we'll use -root. So I'm going to switch to the user named root. And because I'm switching to administrator account, I'm going to use sudo to do that. Notice when I run that sudo su-root, my username changed in my command line interface. Now I'm root at my host. So I'm doing things as a different account now. So if I run pwd, where am I? Well, I'm in /root now. I'm not in my home directory. If I run who am I, well, I'm the root account. I can see that two different places here. So that's interesting. If I run ls/root here, I can see the contents of this folder and I don't get an access denied because I am the root user. I can do whatever I want. If we make it equivalent to what we did before, ls-a root, we can see all the same stuff. The -a again is showing all the hidden stuff, everything that starts with the period and everything else, whereas ls by default hides the files and directories that start with a period. So generally speaking, you want to be careful running things as root. Only use root permissions when necessary, and as soon as you're done doing administrative tasks, you want to stop doing anything as the root user. So if I type exit here, it's not going to close my terminal. It's exiting out of that root user. It's going to bring me back to my regular user account. So now I'm back to Ubuntu at my local host. So that's good. So after I've done my administrative tasks, I can just continue using my computer as a normal user account. If I typed exit again, it would close this. I would just have to reconnect. So I'm not going to exit again. So it's important to manage administrative accounts carefully. In large organizations, you typically don't want to give your users administrative rights. You don't want people installing software that's unauthorized or making changes to things that could cause damage to their computer, could open up vulnerabilities, could do bad stuff. So in the Linux world, the way we do that, if we need temporary administrative permissions, we'll use the sudo command to run one command with root permissions. Or if we're going to be running a lot of stuff and we don't want to type sudo over and over and over and over again, we can sudo su to switch to the root account. And then we can run a bunch of commands as the administrator, and then when we're done, we can exit, and that will bring us back to our normal user account. Just real quick, there's three ways that we're talking about root. There's the root user. There's the root of our file system, that my working directory. This is the root of my computer as far as files and directories are concerned. And then there's also the root home directory. So we're using this a couple of different ways at this point. Yeah, so there's that root home directory. So root can really mean three things depending on the context. So it's important just to be able to distinguish the difference between those things.